I like it. I like it.
I like it too. Hard cut. Yeah.
Hard cut. Yes. Lines on a mirror. All right. Well, Don, don't pretend like you don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm looking at the lines in the mirror. Oh, sorry.
Wow. That's,
Another night in my night job.
Someone called Weird Al. Yeah, I'm sure you've seen your share of that club.
How's that workshop been going for you, Mark? Has Michael Jackson contacted you yet?
Not yet.
Job is still there.
Damn, that's a bummer.
Yeah.
Well, something that's not a bummer is we are here talking about what if. What if we talked about what if? Episode 5, entitled "What If Zombies." Now, I want to start out by saying there was a bit of a switcheroo, I think, because last week and until very recently, IMDb had the episode 5 description as listed as what if Thor, I think, had like fallen to Earth but still retained his powers or something, or still had the ability to hold the hammer. I don't know. It's some weird thing like that. I imagine that's going to be one of the upcoming episodes. Mm-hmm. But so all week I had the thumbnail of a big dopey looking Thor, and then today I switched up to the zombie Thanos. Spoilers, I guess. But so this in this week's episode, we've got the Incredible Hulk crashing to Earth, or Bruce Banner, and he's coming to warn everybody about Thanos. But for some reason, the planet's been already sort of snapped because everyone's dead and there's just zombies walking around, and he has to kind of figure out what the deal is there. But before we get into all of that, before we get into spoilers, I want to introduce my wonderful crew here tonight, Earth's Mightiest Critics. We've got, I think, one other person. Mr. Fowley should be joining us at some point in the evening. But also, and before I get to the introductions, to remind folks that immediately following this live stream, we're going to be doing a separate live stream, link down below, to talk about Shang-Chi. I almost did the Shang-Chi thing. Shang-Chi.
Shang-Chi, get a hot dog with that.
And the Legend of the Ten Rings. So that'll be about 9:20 tonight. So we're going to talk about what if for a little bit, take a coffee/pee break, and then come right back to the Kicking the Seats YouTube channel for that. So before we get started, I am Ian Simmons of Kicking the Seat. We have Annie Banks of Chuckload of Comics. We have Mike Crowley of You'll Probably Agree and 25 Years Later, and Don Shanahan also of 25 Years Later, and Mark the Movie Man of Special Mark Productions in the Spoiler Room. And we are waiting on David Fowley of Keeping It Real. So, I kind of gave a brief synopsis. Is there anything that I'm missing? And if there's not, I have a question to kick off the conversation. So, anything missing? Spoiler free?
No, it's pretty straightforward. If you might hear
not much to say.
If you hear some humming, that's me right now. So the energy vibrating off of myself right now. So
you are irrationally excited about this episode, Mark.
I am.
Okay, well we'll get to that in a second. But my first question. So Bruce Banner crashes to Earth to warn people about Thanos. Where was this in the Marvel continuity? Because I was thinking, was this part of Thor Ragnarok? Because I remember he was exiled on that planet, and at the end of that movie is when Thor and the rest of the remnants of Asgard ran into Thanos, and that's what led us into Infinity War. Where did this Bruce Banner thing happen?
You're muted.
Don, you're muted, buddy.
I'm reading your lips, but it's not working.
Down below.
Yeah, you're good.
You're
You're good now.
Yep.
Okay. No, this is the very beginning of Infinity War. Simple as that.
Yeah, this is right where Bruce can't do the thing, and he's trying to do the thing.
Yeah.
He can't do the thing.
We didn't snap Loki's neck or anything, but Thanos is quick behind, and sure enough.
Okay. I watched
movies out.
Infinity War, I think once in the theater. Yeah, once. I was not a fan of Infinity War.
I was there.
What? The best,
Mike.
The Empire Strikes Back of the MCU.
It's kind of funny
Wait a
because
minute. We're not going to go to that extent.
I wouldn't say that extent, but I will say I enjoyed Infinity War far more than I enjoyed Endgame.
Correctamundo. So
Sold.
I'm genetically disposed to disagree with everybody. I like Endgame I didn't like Endgame, but I liked it marginally better than I liked Infinity War.
Russo Brothers fan fiction, Ian's?
No, I mean that's the thing is
Does that work out to you?
I don't think I've really cared about one of these movies, with the possible exception of, again, hey, ding, 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 Black Widow, since probably like the Civil War, not the Civil War, but Captain America's Civil War. Yeah, I've got problems, and we'll get to hear more about those in the next hour. But for right now, we're going to talk about zombies. So, all right, yeah. So Bruce Banner comes back, and yeah, there's zombies everywhere. This episode is a very mixed bag. I think it was a big step down from what we saw last week, but I feel like this could have been one of the stronger episodes if they had chosen a tone and run with it. And the tone I think they should have chosen is anything having to do with the drama and nothing to do with the comedy, because the comedy in this thing was just too cutesy, and it was like Joss Whedon's, like a Joss Whedon zombie wrote this episode.
He's calling out Joss Whedon.
No, it's not written by Joss
15
Whedon
minutes of the
because
show.
no women were sexualized.
True.
That's a big point. That's a big point.
That's very true. But I will say I didn't recognize any of the men in this episode because they were all like, screaming and clutching and hiding from conflict. This is definitely
that might also be a Joss Whedon thing. I'm not sure.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. But yeah, it was I liked some of the horror stuff. I liked one of the visual gags where, well, let's just turn on this spoiler ticker here. I'm going to spoil it. The bit where the Falcon gets sliced in half by a Kuye. I thought that was amazing.
Cool.
And I also liked Hope Van Dyne's noble demise. I thought that was, again, that was some poetry like you'd see in like Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead, like this really weird kind of visual, and then you've got the sadness and the tears, but everything else I don't know what this episode is.
Yeah, and so I was partially right with my tweet. I said that you were probably going to like this episode that maybe I think nobody would like, but I do agree with you. I think if they stuck with a serious tone instead of inserting that Joss Whedon humor, it would have been a lot better. Because one thing, I was talking to a buddy of mine who works in movies and stuff like that, and I told him he was like going off like, I can't stand the humor in Marvel movies, man, and of course that's exactly what he's talking about right there. And that just kind of dragged the tone throughout, dragged the tone down throughout. But really, the main thing that bothered me is like zombies is such a lazy idea.
Yeah,
I think you have a good point there, but I do think that bringing Cap back in full zombie, that would have been cool instead of bringing him back in the early 2000s or whatever. And he's frozen and he's fresh out of the ice and he's gaining his legs. And I really did like seeing our Infinity War era Bucky Barnes square off with Cap. And I think my favorite part of the episode, I know my favorite part of the episode is where he slices him in half with the shield and goes, I think this is the end of the line. And I was like, that's it.
Yep.
If this was the entire episode with no Joss Whedon schlockiness to it, no screaming of my beloved David Dalmashton, you know what I mean? This would have been it. This really would have been it for me. And I liked the art style and I liked the blockiness of the animation, especially with the zombies, because zombies are traditionally sluggish and slow and unappealing, visually unappealing. And I think that the animation, this half-baked animation, is sluggish and slow and visually unappealing. And they take that Shang-Chi type train scene and rehash it into this new parallel fight scene. But the rest of it, I was just like, what the heck is going on? Where do I look? Where do I focus? Who do I focus on? Am I supposed to be laughing? Am I supposed to be disgusted? Am I supposed to be like anxious? I don't know.
Yeah, I gotta follow that and say, the pace of these episodes, because they're so short, doesn't help. Like in moments that could be serious and should be serious, because we're watching demises of favorites, and it's like, okay, let's go. We gotta catch that train,
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess we should get going. There's a quad jet in the hangar. It's very difficult to make. it's very difficult to make the dramatic effect linger when you have a time, ticking clock of an episode. So if there was one that deserved to be an hour-long episode because you're going with a bolder, more rich concept, even though I think I'm with Mike here, where zombies is a trope from 10 years ago that you don't need. It made for a great comic series, again, more than 10 years ago, but I don't know if that's the one you bring out here. I know it's September going on Halloween, where if you're going to have fun for 30 minutes, this is a place to have fun for sure. It's nice that they elevated some smaller characters into some roles as survivors, to have Hope Van Dyne have a very huge key role. And some of that is all, some of that is all nice, but at the same time, this is a dalliance and the humor, to echo the rest of the dais, just out of place. I like Paul Rudd as much as the next person, but you don't have to rapid fire this stuff for 15 minutes. No.
Plus a Futurama thing with his head in a glass.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Why wasn't this a Halloween episode? I mean, I think I could have given it some points for just coming out in October.
Yeah, put this episode 8. You can save like a 2-parter fun one for the end. And put this in October. This doesn't have to be 5, especially when you follow the most dramatic and best one they've had yet. So yeah.
Now, what I want to get back to this notion of, you just mentioned the phrase 2-part. I want to get back to that in a minute. But Mark,
yes,
I'm popping an umbrella up over your head. I don't want to rain on your parade, so I'm going to give you the chance. Oh wait, hold on a second.
Everybody here's already rained on my parade. I feel like the lone corner. No, I'm kidding.
No.
Just 1 second. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm going to be listening to you. It's just David is trying to connect, but he's having some kind of issues. So I'm going to be watching this too. So go ahead.
To answer your question, Annie. Yes. What you're supposed to feel? Yes.
I'm supposed to feel all of that. I'm supposed to
do everything.
Grossed out.
As a consumer of a lot of horror and a lot of B horror, and
so
especially
we're talking like trauma horror here.
Okay. Now you're getting.
This is for you though.
Okay.
Now you're getting it. It is the reason I loved it.
Trauma.
It's both.
What an
actually. Even fans of trauma will say it causes trauma, depending on which one you watch. That's why I dug this so much, because I'm watching this going, wow, they went to places I never expected Marvel to actually do, and the stuff they did, it's wild, it's crazy, and I knew a lot of fans are probably not going to enjoy it once, because you're right, Mike. Zombies fallback is a little lazy, but superhero zombies is not something we get that often, and I found it interesting that it still kept their special powers even though they were zombies. I liked that angle. You don't see it that often. And so I found
it still sounds like a cocktail napkin, Mark. Like,
I love
superhero
Brightbird.
Zombies.
Exactly. Like, you can mix zombie in any blender you want.
That's fine.
Hey, how many zombies?
Sometimes it tastes like margarita. Sometimes it tastes like V8.
Well, absolutely. But it to me, this again, I get where everybody's saying, especially with the seriousness and the way the series is supposed to go and the history of Marvel films as a whole. I think that's why I really dug this episode, because it was completely different. I understand everybody's, but for me, I've consumed a lot of stuff that is like this, to where it is kind of over the map. So I had fun, because seeing it being put into the superhero world and actually having like some of these guys be super, I thought it was really cool. Maw as a freaking zombie, I thought was really freaking cool. I loved the idea, like when Hope Van Dyne, she does her sacrifice, a beautiful, fantastic, serious scene. When she gets mauled by the zombies, I'm like, she's going to come back as a super giant zombie. I can't wait. And they were going for it. I'm like, maybe they aren't. And then she came back, and I'm like, yes, thank you. That's exactly what I expected and wanted. Again, I get everybody's gripes, but for me personally, this is really my bag. And so for me, I had a lot of fun. Now, I will agree with Don. This is one where I wish it would have been a little bit longer, maybe even 10 minutes longer, because you have everything that's put into these schlocky zombie films that I watch, and many of them I enjoy. The problem is you have it so condensed that it does come at you rapid fire, and it can be a little much to take in, where usually you have at least a little bit of breathing room in zombie films between your humor and your seriousness.
Yeah.
Depending on which one you watch, obviously. But for me, I dug it. No, out of all the episodes, it's the most serious or deep. No, but as far as entertaining, I love this idea. When freaking zombie Scarlet Witch showed up, I'm like, oh damn, it's gonna get real. And again, it's just like why I enjoyed Brightburn so much. What if Superman actually turned batshit crazy evil? Pardon my French, sorry. I like that concept. I like when they take these characters and spin them a bit. While it may not be the most original, it's something we don't see often. Superhero zombies, like full-blown zombie superheroes. Like it's not just bizarro pale skin. I mean, we're talking decomposed, ripped skin type of thing. We're talking zombie Cap chewing on his victim and like actually gnawing. We see a bite actually taken out of Hope. I mean, this is stuff and visuals that I'm like, this is very cool. Dated, sure, but for me, I'm an old guy. This was in my wheelhouse, so I had a blast with it.
Well, yeah, I'm glad. I like a lot of the stuff that you like, Mark, and I've seen a lot of B horror and exploitation and trauma stuff, right? So I get where you're coming from, but my biggest issue with this is, I think there's kind of a time and a place. I think if you wanted to make a trauma style Marvel zombie show, then do that. Yeah. If you want to make a serious, dark zombie, half-hour show like a Walking Dead, but with Marvel characters, do that. But this is a complete mixed bag. When they throw in the Vision and Wanda thing at the very end, I'm like, if they had just not had David Dastmalchian and Paul Rudd and Happy, just leave those jokers. They would be the first to go in the apocalypse. I'm sorry, but leave them out of it and just have this be a journey of a few surviving characters. Hope can still die in that big heroic gesture, because I thought that was kind of beautiful. Hell, even have Ant-Man, let him be serious, because Paul Rudd can do drama. Let him not just be the funny pun guy in a glass jar, but really do something with that story, because by the time it pops up, my imagination is like, oh, where can this go? It goes nowhere, because then Okoye shows up and like, oh, we can just go to Wakanda, and then they all go to Wakanda. I'm like, so the episode's over? Is this going to be one of those? Because as David likes to point out, these are kind of self-contained stories, and he's right. And there's been talk that these might continue on in some fashion, but this is the most blatant, like, to be continued. But it also doesn't seem to really go anywhere, because they just cut to Thanos holding up the gauntlet. Like, are they trying to go for the things didn't work out ending, or is this really a cliffhanger? And if so, I want to see a different approach to the second episode than to the first.
Yep.
On top of that, the whole idea of, the sanctuary against zombiedom, where there's a guy holed up who's experimenting on people to save the one he loves. That's straight up the governor from The Walking Dead. I'm sorry. I don't care. Put a cape on him, it's still the governor.
Yeah, it's not just the governor. It's about a half a dozen other zombie shows. I am not saying at all that this was fully original by any means, but just the fact that you have zombie superheroes alone, for me, was a nice change of pace, because I've watched so many zombie films that you do get cookie cutter, and especially The Walking Dead. I fell out of it because I was just like, okay, the rinse, wash, repeat. I mean,
10 years, Mark. It's been 10 years.
Yeah, and I dropped out of like season 7 because I was just like, okay, the formula is we find a great place, we stay here, a-holes show up, ruin it, we got to go to another great place, even bigger a-holes show up, we got to go to a great place. It works for one or two movies at a time. It doesn't work for an entire series. That's why I liked Z Nation. If you ever watch Z Nation, one of the good things that the Asylum actually made is Z Nation. Now, it's ridiculous, absolutely, especially the first season where you have zombie NATOs and stuff like that. They did it, yes, before Walking Dead. But as that series went on, it took a life of its own to where they really created a unique zombie world, and you didn't know who was going to die from episode to episode. You may have had a character who was built up over a 4 episode. You're like, oh, I'm going to be attached to this guy or this person. And the next thing you know, you're like, oh, they're dead.
But here's the thing. And you touched on it, Mark. People like, and Mike, I think initially touched on it. Zombies are played out. So at this point, even if you're having a zombie homage, like, hey, we've seen all this before, it's still just another zombie thing. So my point of view is, don't waste my time by saying, hey, it's Marvel Zombies, it's a new spin, if it's just zombies and capes. Now, honestly, they kind of do a twist on it by saying these are zombies, but they may be a little bit different because they were based on a disease that was discovered in the quantum zone that was brought back. But my question is, does it act like a normal zombie virus like we're accustomed to seeing? Because when I see Hawkeye, who doesn't have any superpowers, I can understand like maybe a Thanos or somebody else who's got some kind of an enhanced ability still being cognizant, after they're dead and, sort of animated by this thing that compels them to eat people. But Hawkeye's just a regular dude. And yet he's still like shooting arrows with precision and having full-blown like intelligent fights after he's dead. I don't know what the rules are. We haven't had enough time to establish what the rules are, and I don't think the writers care. Before I go any further, David Fowley of Keeping It Real.
Get in here.
While you were talking, I did a zombie cat.
Oh my god!
That's beautiful.
Oh,
That's well done.
That is freaking awesome.
Were we talking that long?
Wow. Yeah, I was. I apologize. That I didn't realize I was talking quite that long. Thank you.
Mark,
Wow.
I'll say this about this episode, and I'll say it about The Walking Dead. Although The Walking Dead is much better than all of The Walking Dead is much better than this episode. But I'll say this about both: the book is better.
Sure.
Marvel Zombies even outwore itself, even when in its numerous limited series. But the initial one, especially the one drawn by Sean Phillips, who's amazing, it's good. I mean, but the thing is, they have much more to play with. Here, it's just MCU stuff. I mean, don't you want to see a Wolverine zombie?
Oh yeah.
I mean, granted, you have to get on board. Well, you don't have to. You just have to accept the fact that yes, these are actually, let's just say they're sentient zombies. Because I mean, Hawkeye can shoot an arrow. What's going on here? Wolverine. A zombie is a drone and kind of mindless, except for the fact that all it wants is eat, consume, brains, whatever. So, wow, in that sense, a Venom zombie would be amazing. But
oh man,
that the fact that a Wolverine zombie would know how to use his claws, I mean, that's amazing. But obviously, this is MCU. We have our limitations. We can't see that. In the comic, you can. In the comic, you even get a Hulk zombie. That's awesome. The one thing I did like about this episode, probably the only thing, is the time period it used. So we used the beginning of Xfinity War, right? With Hulk dropping through Doctor Strange.
Was that when they took over Comcast?
Right.
The Xfinity War?
They fought.
Yeah, it was like
RCNT.
Comcast.
Yeah.
Exactly.
RCN gets in the
That's
middle.
when Disney bought Marvel and Comcast. Anyway,
Wait till we mispronounce Shang-Chi in half an hour. It's gonna be great.
So Xfinity. So that whole idea of if we're gonna regurgitate a trope of opening up a zombie apocalypse with somebody waking up or somebody landing somewhere and it's a totally quiet area, it's kind of cool that it is Dr. Banner who came to warn everybody that Thanos is coming, and like, well, we got other things to deal with, and it's like, it's just quiet and everything. And so initially that's cool. And especially like when we can't tell and he and the audience can't really tell, oh, well, yay, the Avengers are here. And obviously for those in the know, we know, well, don't be so excited. That's kind of cool. But to me, everything after that, it just felt like, this episode felt like Avengers on the tarmac fighting each other in Berlin. Fight. Ooh, cool, nice move. Ooh, fight, giant fight, swinging. Underoos. And like a lot of that. Where underneath it all, it could have been a really cool WandaVision story about the zombie apocalypse. It could have been a really interesting, like heart-tugging story of wow, I got reunited with Barnes, got reunited with Rogers, but he's a zombie. All these things. It could have been a really interesting variation on what they did in the comics, and even just microcosm it. Because you have a limited amount of time, unfortunately. So
yeah,
and man, what a just. It's not even a. Yes, it's a short ending, but what a weird ending. Like, who thought of that? It's like, guys, our production team, you're doing great, but you gotta go.
Wrap it up.
What's going on here? It's like the anti end credit stinger of all MCU is right here.
And by the way, I think we've discovered the next iteration of Skybeam, which is Vision dying. If I have to see him pull that damn gem out of his forehead, or someone else pull that gem out of his forehead one more time, and hear him go, no!
By this time, it should be just easy for him to pull it out.
They pay him to just scream, and then he makes multi-millions. Did you not see that in the contract where it says call the scream, and he goes, "Yeah, where do I sign?"
I can see Paul in
Group.
British accent. Can I get a sky beam? Why, yes, Mr. Bettany, you may.
Yeah.
I actually believe you, Annie, that's in his contract. I love Paul Bettany. I'll watch him do anything, but it's just, by the time it got to that point, I'm like, okay, here's the part where Vision dies again. Maybe if they hadn't done, something similar in, with that whole WandaVision thing. But yeah, I feel like if this had come out before WandaVision, it would have been kind of interesting to see, Vision and Wanda are together and what happened with them there. And then you get to see this whole weird take on the relationship. But
it's very weird.
I mean, they easily could have done something after going off of that Doctor Strange episode, which was truly strange. Doing something with Multiverse of Madness, or Multiverse of Madness, and they didn't. They elected to choose otherwise. You can't even put a teaser or some sort of inclination that can tie these non-canonicals to the canonical and really supplement that gap in between.
Okay.
I like the word canonical.
Well, it's great. Or they could have just waited later until they do all these multiverse films, and they could shove in their multiverse guys if they only want to use the guys who are in the movies.
Yeah.
Like why
all the things we missed in the movie, put in animation. Yeah.
All red sever head. Oh yeah.
As long as the blood is green or some color other than red.
How does it breathe with no lungs? I'm just saying. I mean, come on.
It's
Yeah, I know. Mars Attacks. Here we go.
Mars Attacks.
No, it's weird. I feel like we've talked about the episode to death or undeath already, and we're barely a half hour in. Do we have anything else to discuss, or are we going to take a? What's that?
The pee break. No.
Well, we will be coming back in a little bit to talk about Shang-Chi, but I mean, it's the weird thing, and Mark, I feel like we are kind of getting down in the episode, and it's not.
No, it's fine. I again, I see.
I just don't want to sap any of your joy.
No, you're not. You're not.
I'm saving after the Shang-Chi chat.
Yeah,
that's right.
No, you're not. No one's sapping it. Everybody makes excellent points. Again, the one thing that I have found interesting about each one of these what ifs, and I think it might be a little bit of
makes excellent points.
Culture shock.
You're echoing.
Sorry. The culture shock, I think there's a bit of a culture shock for some Marvel fans for what you have seen over the last 10 years, what they have nurtured over the last 10 years. And you could get away with it with Doctor Strange, which is why it's one of my favorites as well, because it does start to get weird, in a good way. And as Annie put it, strange, that's why I kind of like it, because it breaks away. But they are taking a bit of a risk because they have created the world and set these things and kind of expectations. So now you've got these individual stories, which some of them are so break away from their format in many ways that I think, for a lot of people, it's like yeah, we just have a zombie film where I love zombies. So for me, you know, I love horror films. So for me, this was right up my alley. Just like when you had them hunting, you know, the Avengers and having Avengers being knocked off one by one. I found that interesting, where I know many people were like, oh, it's just a standard. And I get that. What I think they're going with these what ifs is just presenting different stories for people with different tastes, instead of maybe creating one that's going to be for a lot more people. And this is just my own kind of observation. But by doing that, you end up getting a little bit more divisiveness in your fan base, going, well, this episode's really kind of, and this is what I was worried about with the what ifs, is because I'm like, just where were they going to go with this series? And it's nothing. I am not saying anything bad or trying to portray anything negative about the fans of the entire MCU universe. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm just saying, though, is that they have followed this wonderful formula and standard and expectations to where they kind of put themselves into where they could only do so much before possibly alienating or turning off some of their fans. And What If, I think, is doing that, because I've seen the internet as well. It's been very conversations kind of like this, where there's some people that just are turning off the series, where other people are enjoying certain episodes. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see where they go with this. I'm still curious, but I think that's part of it, is just a MCU fan, not culture shock, but just like, okay, kind of like with Star Wars and some of the series they have. I'm revisiting Clone Wars from the beginning, because I did watch through season 6 when it went to Netflix, and I stopped, and then Disney picked it up. But I'm like, I've forgotten most of the series, so I'm watching it again. And even watching that, I'm like, some of these episodes are really hitting with me, and some of them are just falling flat. Like this one where they chased R2-D2. R2-D2 was captured because he still had all the plans from the rebellion in his memory banks. I just finished this episode. It's a wonderful episode, because you don't think of that with the R2 unit. You know, it's just like here with the zombie episode here that we've watched. It's like you have Vision, who even voice acting, Paul Bettany's awesome in this, and they did nail the animation, because let me tell you, I got the evil scientist vibe the minute they caught up to him and started seeing him. I'm like, oh, he's evil scientist all the way. And even in the animation, they caught Bettany's expressions of just the little evil smile, or the little, that tone, and it gave me a bit of a chill. I'm like, oh, Vision as a mad doctor, I love that idea. you know.
Yeah,
so,
well, you know,
I guess that's where I'm at with it. Is I understand everybody's gripe; they're not taking away. I fully see it, but each one of these episodes, I think, are meant for different people.
And that's fair. I kind of that.
I've talked really long now. Dave's really he's gonna have a whole comic done. He's gonna have a whole comic done by the time I get done rambling.
Every time Mark talks.
No, well, so. But I guess that's one of the things I was asking myself after this episode aired, or I finished watching it, and I've asked myself this question after a few of these episodes: is who is this for? It's an animated show. Is it meant for, because it's on Disney Plus? Is it meant for kids? Is it meant for like new people to the Marvel universe? Is it meant for diehard fans? Is it meant for people who are fans of different genres and exploitations? Because I just don't feel like I feel like it's too sophisticated and scary for little kids, and frankly, too boring in some parts. But for people who've been following this stuff, I feel like they've not, it's not like people only watch Marvel movies. And again, this is going to be one of my critiques of Shang-Chi. People are immersed in pop culture. So tropes and recycled ideas and all that stuff, that's only going to get you so far. When you're talking about a quote unquote new series from the House of Ideas about what if, all the possibilities, I'm like, out of a universe of possibilities of alternate realities, you give us something that we've seen 25,000 times. It's just that's what's kind of frustrating to me. It's cute. It's a half hour, but again, I go back to the Twilight Zone analogy. I don't think there were a whole lot of stinkers in the 5 seasons that show was on. It was pretty much written by a very small crew of science fiction writers. You
bring up a good point about who it's for and what the audience is. My coworkers and I, we talk online about the latest episode sometimes, and I briefly offer my, 8 cents. My one coworker's like, I gotta catch up with it because my 6-year-old was crying. And I'm like, well, I mean,
crying out of emotion or crying because she saw Cap eating someone?
I think probably both, maybe. I mean, I guess it ended on an emotional. I felt nothing. Sorry. I mean, it's like
I was smiling.
Yeah, I mean,
my biggest takeaway here, and I know I'm in the minority on this opinion, but I really disliked episode 2, the T'Challa episode, and this episode brought into sharp focus why I couldn't stand that episode, because T'Challa was not in episode 2. T'Challa was in episode 5. He was in this episode. This is the Black Panther that we know and love. He's not the easy breezy, like, hey, I'm smiling, everything's a good time. He's, the noble Prince of Wakanda who finds himself caught in a really weird and untenable situation. So yeah, I know alternate realities and all that stuff, but I feel like if this had been episode 2 for all of its faults, I feel like the praise of Chadwick Boseman as a terrific performer would have been warranted rather than this weird hagiography just because he showed up.
I just feel like, is this going to be the final performance of him as T'Challa?
No,
We're going to see
I don't
those
think so.
recorded.
No, he's in 2 more episodes.
Oh, okay.
According
It's
to
gonna happen here in What If.
Weird way to go out.
according to IMDb, he was listed for 4 episodes, and we've only had him in 2, I think.
And then Mark, how many are there total in this series? Is it 10?
I think it's 10.
10?
It's 8 or 10, I think. I
Okay.
forget. But so he's going to show up at least 2 more times in the last half of the season, which is cool.
Yeah, it should be coming up soon because I just realized we're halfway through season 1. Wow.
Here's what I think would happen, and this is just from an outsider, hashtag DC shill, but no, I love MCU as well. But what I think this is this weird period of between phase 3 and phase 4. In all honesty, I think they had kind of a plan of what they were going to do. One, the pandemic kind of threw some productions off, but also it really feels like Marvel's trying to find its way again, or find that this. What if, in all honesty, with everybody and watching each one of these episodes, hearing you guys talk when I'm not on, so I'm not dominating the conversation, I apologize. But is filler. This actually, What If series actually feels like, how do we stay in the pop culture? How do we stay in the conversation between, this film? Another reason why Black Widow got delayed because of the pandemic, but even with that, the production of the story, the TV shows is like, while we get our footing and plan our phase 4 and actually really come out of the gate with phase 4, what are we going to do? Well, we did the WandaVision. Okay, we did, these 3 episodes. Well, crap, we still have this span of time before, we get into Spider-Man No Way Home and, the really meat of things. So what do we do? Well, we got What If, and that way they could fill time, still be in the conversation on social media, give themselves a platform to where they can pick and choose what they want once they present these episodes, and go forward and then come out of the gate and then maybe start running again with the phase 4. But this is kind of this weird in-between time, and it's what I've talked about before. DC I don't know what's wrong with the producers, but they had an opportunity to just do their own thing, not seeing that you're going to have a gap between phase 3 and phase 4. And that's where, if DC had done it right, they would be at their peak right now with their films, and people would be talking about, wow, these things have been set up and great, while Marvel tries to get itself going for a whole new saga.
Well, I can see where it's coming from, but I don't know that that's it, because this whole phase feels very deliberate to me. I just feel like the timing might have been off, because a lot of this stuff was supposed to happen throughout last year and then coming into this year. But, I feel like What If is a natural bridge from, you've got WandaVision, you kind of take a detour with Captain and the Winter Soldier. But, if you look at WandaVision to Loki, now to What If, you're gradually building this bridge of weirdness expanding from what we have
Sure.
known from the Marvel Universe, getting into this idea
Mhm.
of a multiverse, alternate reality, alternate timelines, which is going to lead into Spider-Man, which is going to lead into Doctor Strange. So it does feel deliberate to me. It just feels, I think that some of the executions on that, alternate timeline stuff is more effective in some media than others. And this animated series, there's been some highs, there's been some lows. I think we'll be able to evaluate it after, all episodes are, said and done and talked about. But right now it's just like, yeah, it's a show.
Mhm.
But speaking of shows, I hate to wrap this up, but we've got a few minutes between now and our discussion of Shang-Chi, which for those watching, if you'd like to check it out, there's a link down below to the second live stream. Yes, I'm letting my lovely and talented Earth's Mightiest Critics go and refresh their beverages or relieve their beverages. And we'll be back at 9:20 CST. And if you're watching this in the future, i.e. anytime after like noon tomorrow, you'll be able to watch that live stream right now if you want. You can turn off our blathering voices. But yes, it's been wonderful talking What If with everybody. I'm excited to find out when the hell this Thor episode's happening. Possibly next week, so I can reuse that thumbnail. David, why are you doing jazz hands? What
I
is
think
that?
I think it means 10-minute break.
10-minute break. Yes. Well, it's 9 minutes now.
Oh,
so
man.
yes,
Hold on.
we have been Earth's Mightiest Critics. You know everybody. You love everybody. I'm going to reintroduce everyone in 10 minutes anyway. So check the link, the description down below for everybody's links. I've been Ian Simmons. Thank you very
Thanks.
much. This has been the Kicking the Seat. What If we talked about What If? We'll be back next week. Same Marvel time, same Marvel channel. And until then, well, we'll see you in a few minutes. So come back. I'm going to end this broadcast right now. Excelsior!